Queen Mother, Her Majesty's own mother, I think was actually always in her mind, and losing one's mother, I've been through it myself, is an enormous moment in someone's personal history. But Her Majesty the Queen Mother also famously said during the Second World War, as the Luftwaffe were blitzing the East End, and Buckingham Palace was bombed, she said, "I can now look the people in the East End in the eye." I mean, there was this common touch that was part of Her Majesty's DNA.
Yeah, exactly right. But look, it's been, if I may say so, bred into the House of Windsor for generations. We've had a succession of exemplary monarchs. The Queen, obviously, someone who we mourn today while giving thanks for her life, but her father before her, her grandfather, and I'm sure that's the spirit that that King Charles will show now that he's assumed the role. He will be, I'm sure, his mother's dutiful son, and will reign in accordance with the great traditions of the House of Windsor for generation unto generation.
The other thing, I think a lot of people who say, "Oh, let's change the system," and I mean, I find it unbelievable that some have decided today to start promoting a different way of running a country. But nations like the United States, they get it. They understand what we've got, the stability that's brought about by this constitutional monarchy, and the way in which all authority flows through that, and indeed ensures a certain amount of stability and freedom for each and every one of us. There is no doubt about it that as Queen of Australia, Her Majesty has done as much as anybody could do, given that much of the time she lives a long way away.
Well, that's right, and I think if there's one thing that today should have reminded us of, it's the power of the Crown and the magic of the monarchy, and the fact that under our system, you can have someone who is there not just for 1 or 2 terms of Parliament, but for the best part of a lifetime. And there's no doubt that that brings with it a sense of constancy, a sense of stability, an affection and a familiarity which is all too often lacking in this tumultuous world.
Many of us who care about these things noted that Her Majesty understandably declined after the passing of the Prince Philip. There is no doubt about it that she never fully recovered from that just awful moment of watching her husband of so many years just gone. And the fact that she had to mourn in many ways alone because of the great pandemic we've been through.
True, Gary, true. But she wouldn't be the only spouse who was never quite the same again after the death of her life partner, her strength and stay, as she referred to Philip. And I guess that, again, shows the human dimension to the monarchy. It's a wonderful institution, but it's also, I guess, life in all its richness writ large before us.
Personal anecdotes, times you've met Her Majesty, what are the ones that stand out in your mind as you join all of us who are mourning her passing today?
You never forget any meetings with someone like the Queen. I guess I was always conscious of the fact that I was not just in the presence of a wonderful and engaging person, but I was in the presence of someone who had been part of history. At the end, she'd had 15 British Prime Ministers, 16 Australian Prime Ministers. She'd met 14 United States Presidents. Someone who has done as much, seen as much, and been as many places has a certain aura about them, a certain, I guess, a palpable sense of almost the transcendent. And I guess I was grateful and honoured to have the privilege of being in her presence.
And one final thought, a reflection about that sense of privilege versus the importance of service. It seems awfully lost these days in public life. There are some, I think if people reflected properly, they would take the example of Her Majesty's lifelong service, maybe enveloped in an atmosphere of a sense of privilege for some around her, and apply themselves better. I lament this great loss of service in the minds of many who are elected well to serve.
And also the loss of civility, because that was one thing that always characterised the Queen. She was always decent, always diligent, always dedicated. It was never about her. It was always about her God, her country, our country, and the people she was with. So there are many lessons in her life